Welcome to Two Taps and Friends. Grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's dive into another episode of Two Taps and Friends.
Welcome back to Two Taps and Friends. I'm Danny Rosenberg, your host. Today I have a panel of esteemed trial lawyers. I brought them back. Returning, I have attorney Michael Dye. I have trial attorney Michael Dell, trial attorney Johnny Weeks. Johnny Weeks is an esteemed lawyer. I had him on before. I'm glad to have him back. By the way, I forgot to say this. You could check Johnny out at All in a Week's work. He's all over Instagram. You can reach him. He's all over the place. Michael's all over as well, so feel free to look into them. But I have them back because I wanted to talk to you guys about some trials that are going on. People are always saying to me, a lot of viewers are asking, hey, will you guys talk about some of these trials, what your opinions are, right? First off, we'll start with the biggest one, the P Diddy trial, right? The P Diddy trial, right? It's annoying that they have the cameras aren't in on that case.
Conspiracy to distribute baby oil.
Yeah, you could. I mean, they're exactly. It's hilarious, but not at the same time, right? But it's tough to follow along because you're following along with other people's interpretation of the testimony, which is different, and I understand. But you guys are aware. Have you been following along?
Of course.
Right. So obviously, the allegation. Let's just spell it out for the viewers that don't know what's going on. Is that P Diddy was with this Cassandra. Her name is Cassandra. What's her last name? Cassie. I forget what her last name.
Everybody calls her Cassie.
Cassandra Ventura. Her last name is Cassandra Ventura. She was a young upcoming artist. She got with P Diddy. He was Bad Boy Records. He's a huge label. Everybody knows him. They were together, and then things start coming out. It all stems from an incident that got caught in the camera in Intercontinental Hotel of him beating her up really badly on the camera. We've all seen that video. Not a good video. Obviously, there's a lot to be said for P Diddy. Pretty disgusting. But she goes and files a civil lawsuit. It was for, I don't know if it was for battery. You know what the civil lawsuit was for?
Battery, sex trafficking.
Battery, sex.
It was a regular civil lawsuit where they
Right.
throw in everything.
Civil means for money, right? There's no criminal action at this point. He settles with her within 24 hours, which was interesting. He pays her $22 million to settle the case. Not usual, all right? So obviously the guy is showing a consciousness of guilt there as far as the civil goes. The feds pick it up, though, and they hit him.
Years later.
Years later. How many years was it?
Couple.
At least 3 or 4 years later.
Well, the feds, that's unusual because the feds, what they'll do is they'll take their time, and that's the thing is we all practice in federal court. It's a lot more different. We talked about Michael last time. Feds will take their time and compile and compile and compile. When they come, we've literally had to rent extra offices for the discovery that they send us because they're doing surveillance and doing all these things. Not to say their cases are airtight by any means, but they're generally more prepared to take their time. So they've now hit him with, and I think the counts are, it's important what the charges are, because the problem is we hear about this all in the media. Everybody hears all the facts about, he's beating her, and the substance really is P. Diddy, apparently, he had these famous parties. We all knew about these parties, right? The all-white parties. People were wearing all white, and apparently these were like sex freak-off parties. Now we hear about all this depraved stuff that was going on. Some celebrities have spoken out about it and all this kind of stuff. But all that, as defense attorneys, what we're looking for is what are the charges and can they prove it, right? So the charges they have sex trafficking is one count. They have conspiracy, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. And the substance of what I hear is, so far, the allegation is that he was bringing male escorts, and Cassandra was the first person to testify, this Cassie girl, saying that, she was forced to have sex with these, escorts. That's what I'm hearing. And then the other witness that I've ever had, I think one witness was an assistant of his, right?
I heard that, yeah.
And the assistant came out saying that he was a bad person, would beat her up in front of him, and in front of her, and threatened her with all these mafia-like threats. And obviously, listen, the issue is that the trial, the count is not to prove that he's a piece of shit, right? The trial is to prove that he committed these acts. Now, that goes to whether or not, it's one of the factors into a jury deciding whether they think he did this. But that's what we're hearing so far. And another guy that testified was that kid, what's his name, Kid Cudi or something?
Kid Cudi, yeah.
He's another guy. He's dating Cassandra after the fact, right?
No, he was, whenever Diddy and her would break up, he was the side guy that would move in.
So, and what is he, did you guys hear what the testimony, what his testimony was?
So
He
his
had somebody-
testimony is the most important.
Yeah, he had somebody break into his, he said that Diddy had somebody break into his house and Molotov cocktail his car.
And went through his kids' Christmas presents and opened them all up. I thought that was really the funny part about it too.
It's just
Right,
intimidation?
right.
What's the point of that, just to
And
intimidate?
I don't think it was somebody. He's saying Puffy did it himself. That's the only way they can actually prove the racketeering charge.
Right.
And, you know,
Explain that a little bit for the.
in order to prove this racketeering charge, they have to prove that he was in some type of criminal scheme of threatening to try to stop other crimes from occurring.
Right.
And so there's the government's saying that with this Molotov cocktail and the burning of the Porsche, that this was his way of stopping witnesses or stopping individuals from doing certain things, and that's the racketeering aspect of it.
Right.
The problem with all that is I don't believe Kid Cudi ever reported the crime to the police. He has pictures of everything of his Porsche,
Right.
right? And he sent text messages to Puffy, and I think the response was, okay, I'll stop, or something. There's some type of response back, or like, you know, I'm done, or whatever. But nothing really saying that he did it.
Right.
But no one really knows if Diddy was ever there to do it. So I find that really strange. The whole case, even the sex trafficking aspect
I
of
think
it.
that's
When
the-
you and I
that's
think
the
of
most
sex
worrying.
trafficking,
Right, right.
I think of bringing individuals in, young girls or
Young
even
boys.
young boys or even older girls as prostitutes,
Right.
and then being in a hotel, as what our cases are,
Right.
and then sending them out on back page ads,
Right. Like
or
pimps.
like a pimp,
Right.
which, you know, we've all tried cases like that.
Sure.
You know, that being said, this particular sex trafficking, Cassie was the one that was actually calling the male escorts to come over
Right.
and on her phone for these freak offs.
Right.
So just because they enjoyed that type of sex,
Right.
how can you really prove that that was sex trafficking? I mean, yes, he might have ordered prostitutes and hookers and things like that, but, you know, they were all of age. There's no allegations that I've heard that any of these individuals are
either. That's what, like, the some
underage.
I'm not hearing.
And Cassie obviously was given a deal
Yeah.
in order to testify because she's the one doing all the ordering.
Right.
And I don't know if you saw this, but at times she would break up with Kid Cudi, go back to him, and in text messages say, I miss our freak offs.
Right.
Yeah.
So on one hand, she's saying on the stand, oh, it was the worst experience I've ever had to deal with in my life. He ruined me. On the other hand, she's literally saying, I love that lifestyle, which is a lifestyle. I mean, like,
Right.
might not be in that lifestyle, but individuals.
I mean, I think they had one witness, the U.S. Marshal's witness, he came to testify that he found drugs, baby oil, and, what was it? Drugs, baby oil, and, what was the other thing you found? I forgot what it
I
was.
don't know. I think there was.
Basically, it sounded like a college dorm, is what it sounded
Yeah,
like. Like, that's not evidence of a crime, right?
It's evidence of a good time.
Like, some people on this panel might have, I'm just joking. No, but like, that's not sex trafficking, right?
Let's talk about the RICO aspect a little bit because I actually have a RICO case going on right now.
Okay.
So what the prosecution has to prove is that there was an ongoing organization, all right? And
Right.
in this, they call it the Combs Enterprises, which is just basically all of his companies,
Right.
all right? Like Bad Boy Records, and he has subsidiaries and things like that. So,
Sure.
and all the employees that work for those companies. And then there has to be a purpose of the company. Now, I don't know what they're saying the purpose is, but there has to also be a criminal purpose to it as well.
Right.
And so what happens, you have an ongoing organization with a criminal purpose, and you have all these various individuals acting in concert with each other to facilitate the criminal purpose of the organization. So the RICO statute first came about in, I think, the 70s or 80s to break apart the mafia.
Right.
And so what it does is it makes any one individual in the organization responsible for the crimes of all individuals in the organization, as long as that crime was to facilitate the purpose of the ongoing enterprise.
Right, the reason for that, just with viewers, because back in the day, the mob captains would keep their hands clean, and all these lower guys would do all the killing, and then the lower guys would just go in, not say a word, and never get the mob captains. When they created the RICO statute, it was a way to tie them all. So that's
It
what
was
you
a way to
see
get
in
into
the
the
movies.
upper
They would have
echelon.
the tree and all the pictures, and that's what they were trying to do with RICO, you know?
They were trying to move up the ladder.
Right, move up the ladder. We'll take the low guys, and then we'll slowly get to the top.
So the low-hanging fruit in this case, which is the interstate prostitution, facilitation of interstate prostitution, I think they've got that pretty clearly. All right.
Explain how they have that, in your opinion.
Well, from what I've heard from Cassie's testimony, and I haven't followed it too closely.
Sure, what the
But
government's position is going to be.
the government's position is that Diddy, P Diddy, whatever we want to call him this
Right,
week.
right.
All right. He would go ahead and pay sex workers to cross state lines for purposes of having sex with Cassie. All right.
No, but it's just Cassie now we're hearing, right? Because I hear rumblings in the media about all these other people he made have sex too, but all we're hearing right now, testimony-wise, is Cassie, right?
Correct.
Is there an allegation by the government that there's other people?
I believe there are, but that'll happen later on.
What, when they bring the witnesses in, but do we know count-wise? Have you guys seen?
There's only 3 counts.
Okay,
All right. So I think, and I don't know whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, interstate prostitution.
Right.
But I think they've got them pretty clearly on that. I haven't heard any good rebuttal come from his side. It's kind of like okay, yeah. Because, I mean, even when they were
well, if she's calling them,
whose money?
so it has to be his money. You're arguing they're going to argue because it's his money, and he's having her call with his money.
That's what I would say.
Oh, well, we know what the pushback would be there, right?
Well, I no, because I think that they're saying that she was part of the tree.
Right, she's part of the tree.
So that's why they gave her, immunity.
Right.
In order to go forward. So she's part of this criminal organization to bring in hookers to have whatever their fetish was, is him watching his girlfriend have sex with male hookers.
Right, well,
Very weak.
I think it's weak. And to talk what you spoke to, speak to what you're speaking to, the sex trafficking part now, like,
Actually, no, I think that's to the interstate transportation.
not that
of
part, but
prostitution.
let's move to the sex trafficking now. Like, where are they going to show that?
The sex trafficking, and again,
Because these are paid escorts, right? I mean, they're escorts. They
They don't work for him.
They don't work for him. They're independent,
independent.
escorts, right?
Did he 1099 them?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, speak to that a little bit. What are you guys talking about that?
Well, the sex trafficking aspect of it, and again, I got some of this information listening to Nancy Grace, which is not always the most.
This is where people are getting all their information.
Yeah,
these days.
it is.
Dude, at least you dropped that. You let everybody know it came from Nancy Grace.
Nancy
But go ahead.
Grace, not always the most unbiased.
Oh my God, that woman,
source.
I almost failed the bar because of her. She pissed me off so bad listening to her between 2 nights at the bar. She just makes me so mad. She's such a prosecutor, you know what I mean? She got me so mad, I'm like, I don't want to be a lawyer. If that's what happens, I don't want to be a lawyer.
That's what I become.
Yeah.
So what I heard was that the incident where Cassie was getting beat up in the hotel,
Right.
it was during the middle of a freak off session. She decided she wanted to quit. She was like, I'm done. They were like a day or 2 into it or something. She's like, I'm done, and she got up to leave. Diddy comes running down the hallway in a towel.
I
mean, you
saw
see
that.
him.
Everybody saw that.
Everybody, and he's still in a towel.
Right.
Beats the crap out of her and takes her back and tells her, get back to work.
Right.
All right. At that point in time, the sex trafficking has to be through force, duress, or coercion.
And they're showing that. They're showing that, and I saw some of the testimony. They're trying to show the grip he had on her career-wise, too. There was a lot of testimony about the grip he had on her career-wise, the coercion, and
The coercion.
Right.
Now, the fact that she later on says, I miss our freak-offs, okay, that's a good point for the defense.
we're going to use the domestic violence thing, like the battered victim thing,
Yeah. But all that the prosecution has to show is that one time he used force, duress, or coercion in order to get her to participate. And I think her testimony there, well, it gets past JOA after the states, after the government's.
It's up to one time.
Yeah, it's gonna go to the jury.
But reasonable doubt still arguable. What do you think of that?
My problem with it, though, is she constantly is involved with her text messages, with her actions. I believe at one point in time, she leaves her husband, that she's currently with now,
Oh, yeah.
what I heard, and goes back to Diddy again. So, yes, they could always bring in a doctor to say that, like, he was controlling her mentally.
Right.
But how many years can she keep going back to the same individual and then claim that I wasn't into that lifestyle and I wasn't doing it voluntarily?
Right.
I mean, yes, they might have had a fight, and yes, that beatdown's really bad.
Yeah, it's
No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
a bad video.
But we've seen a lot of bad videos and
yeah.
beatdowns.
Oh, yeah.
Does that then say that he's bringing her back there to actually participate in some sex,
That's a good point, too.
or were they upset? Was he
Just a
upset about
fight.
something else? A fight?
Because there's fight. The defense is bringing up stuff showing that they fought all the time. They had a bad relationship. That's the defense position. Listen, they have a bad relationship. Show me sex trafficking, right?
Right.
Cassie's testimony also was that he videotaped everything. So there's all sorts of
Whose
videos.
testimony was that?
Cassie's
Okay.
testimony was that he videotaped all of their freak-off sessions.
Do they have those videos?
And he has the videos, and he would show them to her, and he would threaten to release the videos if she did not continue to participate.
Right.
So
That's a good point.
at
I heard
that
that
point,
too.
you have coercion and arrest.
But how we know these tapes exist?
But she leaves numerous times, and we've never seen any tapes. He's never released any tapes.
Right.
And she voluntarily comes back.
She could easily say that.
Playing,
And
playing devil's advocate, she leaves, and then she comes back. Why? Because he's threatening to release the
that's
tape.
what they're going to say. But
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, but she then gets married to another individual, and he marries.
Another-
I don't know if he marries, but he was dating J-Lo at the time.
Right.
Which is the really interesting thing. J-Lo has been completely quiet about any of this.
Right. That's another aspect. Like,
And then
What
2
did
nights
she know?
ago, she's kissing 2 girls on stage at the American Music Awards.
J-Lo?
Yeah,
American Music Awards?
yeah.
YouTube.
You do. Yeah, but exactly.
So, was she involved in these freak-offs?
Right.
I mean, like, what was going? I mean, like, did she have the same experiences that Cassie did? I mean, what other girlfriends have come back or said that they've dated, P Diddy, and they've had the same experiences? Because you would think that there would be numerous girls that he would have in this, I know one individual came in to testify from that band that he put together.
Yeah,
That was a
what-
girl band.
Yeah. I had it written down here.
But I don't think she gave too much information besides the fact that she was friends with Cassie and
she saw her get beat up a lot.
she saw her got beat up.
Right.
So obviously she got beat up a lot, and he has a problem beating up women, and
Right.
he's got a serious anger management issue. But does that really lead to sex trafficking?
Right. And then speaking to coercion, speaking to what Johnny was saying, like, to his point, like, at the beginning of her career, she's a nobody. I get it. He's got coercion. But at some point, how many years this is going on? She became huge. Like, she's a pretty known person, Cassie, right? Like,
I think she was just known for being his girlfriend.
yeah, but no, she's an artist. She had songs. She released songs, didn't she? What does she know?
She released a bunch of songs.
Yeah, she released a bunch of songs. So, like, I think that
I've never heard
coercion
of
gets weaker as the time goes by. If your only argument is he threatened to release tapes. Okay, well, we don't even know if these tapes...
Well, let's just talk about tapes for exact. I
Right.
mean, a minute, okay? Hold on.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Kim Kardashian who releases a tape by Ray J.
Blows.
Right? And
Blows up.
the only reason we all know about Kim Kardashian is because of this tape. And
Right.
it literally, forget about her dad, who was a great lawyer.
Yeah,
right?
he gets nothing.
He gets
no
nothing.
credit, right?
And now all of a sudden you have the entire Kardashian family based on one sex tape.
Right.
One has 2 or 3 planes. They have makeup.
They're like the richest phone of the richest family.
All because of one sex tape.
Right, right.
So
That's
does
not
this,
a really big threat.
does the sex
especially-
tape really ruin you? I mean, it could have made her.
Yeah, and not to mention you're staying in freak offs because you're trying to further your career as your position, He's threatening to release a sex tape with him involved or you involved, and that'd probably blow up your
which
career
would
even
have
more.
which would have
Like,
completely blown up her career. I
Right.
mean, like, I mean, that would be the first thing that I would cause. I said, listen, sex tapes in this day and age, back in our day, sex
Right.
tapes would have ruined you.
Right.
But after Kim Kardashian's sex tape, it doesn't ruin you anymore. In fact, you have women on what's the website that they have that you pay to just watch their feet and like all that?
Right.
And there's
Mike knows which one.
I have no idea.
there's teachers now doing these things and they're getting fired from teaching jobs during
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. So sex in today's era
Not the same.
is not the same. So their argument that he was going to release a sex tape, I think is weak.
Right.
I don't think it ruins you as an individual. In fact, nowadays, it might bolster your credibility in the world that they live in. And that's all I'm saying. And maybe in our world, it would ruin us. But in the world that they live in, which is
Likes, follows, just, visibility.
Attention.
visibility and the rap community,
Right.
which is all about who's like following you and what's the newest, hottest scene and things like that. I
music.
think it would bolster her.
Agreed.
So I think that that's a very weak argument for the government. And if I was a defense attorney, I would be calling Kim Kardashian or Ray J to say, when you put this out there, did you expect it to ruin her or to make you bigger?
Right.
Because Ray J is an artist who then put that out and said that like it was accidentally put out, but somehow it got out. And it blew up Kim's career, not Ray J's career. I don't think we've heard about Ray J
No,
since.
I don't even, people forget about it.
Right, he's only the guy in the video. And he actually had a pretty good music career during, so
Right. I mean, listen, that's not to be insensitive to this. Obviously, if this is a person that's better, we're trying to come up with the defense's argument here, just to remind the viewers here. Just know we're not like belittling sex tapes and all that kind of stuff, but this is the stuff the defense is going to probe the government on, right?
Well, the big issue you've got is you've got Cassie willingly consenting to this.
numerous times.
Numerous times.
Right.
For years on end.
Right.
Even after they broke up, even after she's with her husband, she's still, she's reaching out to him. So that is a huge plus for the defense. The easy thing for the prosecution is they only have to prove one time. And if you, the thing that I'm concerned about is the video combined with her testimony with nothing to rebut the fact that he pulled her back in and made her continue. That is the one time necessary to
Did
get
any
a
of the
sex
male
trafficking.
escorts testify to cut?
Yes,
They
it did.
testified that it was against her will?
No, they didn't.
That's another.
The testimony was rather hilarious, by the way.
What was the testimony?
This guy, he's a male escort, and he's called like the Punisher or something. And he dresses up in like with this leather mask and leather straps all over.
Oh my
Kind of looks like the '80s leather bars type guy.
Oh my God.
And he was saying that,
From Police Academy?
yeah.
You been there? You been there?
Yeah.
Parking,
my favorite place.
parking in the rear?
Yeah. So he goes ahead and he was testifying
movie.
that Diddy, then Diddy would come in and sit in a corner naked with the camera, messing with himself, and then he would start like saying things, and the Punisher like couldn't keep it up. Because he was like, Diddy would be like, oh man, look at that ass. And then he'd just be like, whoop.
God. That was the testimony?
Yeah, so then the second time, he had to use Viagra so that he could keep it going. But he couldn't finish, all right, because Diddy kept talking. And then the
And he
third,
could only think of what, Biggie or Mace?
This is just
and
absurd.
so the third time, and just judging by, like, he said he had to take another medication to finish. So I'm thinking it was either, like, cabergoline or Proviron that he had to take in order to finish. And so he said that finally worked, but he had to walk out into the hallway, calm down, drink a couple glasses of water.
Oh my God. But
But he
there's
said,
no
did he-
testimony about against the will, though.
Yeah, no testimony against the will.
Right. I mean, that's
But
it's going to be tough.
he did that. I think his testimony also solidifies the transportation for interstate prostitution.
And the toughest thing is,
Yeah, but she orders him. I mean, I know she orders the prostitute there. I mean, maybe Puffy paid for it, but she orders the prostitute there.
Is there ever an incident where he
Criminal
orders it?
organization.
No,
Right.
Understood. But I'm just saying I mean, for an individual to say that she wasn't involved in it, or, excuse me, she was not a willing participant in it, when she's ordering the prostitute and I mean, you would have to say that you're basically,
A zombie.
or kidnapped and kept in a basement.
Right.
The way the government's trying to show that she's a victim in this particular situation, but she's not only living in a different house, but she's technically even marrying to another guy and still coming back.
Right.
It's very
The
strange.
bigger issue is it possible for this guy to even get a fair trial?
No.
How can he have a fair trial?
Well, I was just about to say, right as we were speaking, we go back to our previous segment. We talk about the layout of the jury panel on this particular.
Right.
And I think that there's more, from what I
Yeah, how many
remember,
women?
I think there's less women than men.
That's not necessarily that
Not
good. because
necessarily good
I'm just,
here.
I'm just saying, so, like, in that weird respect, I think in this particular case, and I know that you've had cases like this, and we've all had cases, the women are more tougher on the women than you could ever imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
When you do a
Cattiness.
domestic, right, it's so catty. When you do a domestic
bad.
case and you have this domestic case going on, the women are like, oh, I would never, no way. And
Right.
they literally go against the woman 9 times out of 10. I
Right.
mean, in fact, they're like, why would anybody stay in that? She's lying.
Right.
When the men start feeling bad for the woman.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a very weird part of society, I would say, that's what we see all the time.
Right, they have
And when we're
thumbs.
picking these juries,
Right.
we have these ideas that are completely against most people's ideas on the street.
Right.
You would think a woman would stand up for another woman and say, I feel bad for her. But it's not the case most of the time in a criminal courtroom when you watch these women literally get nasty on a
Right.
victim.
Oh yeah, and not to mention dudes watching him beat the shit out of a girl. Guys don't want to see that.
No.
Guys, nobody wants to see that. But guys, I think even I would more like we have daughters. Some of us have daughters. Like, and you can't unsee that. That's another thing about like all this is out there. Like, how do you get a fair and impartial jury, or how do you get a fair trial? Like these people are seeing it's all over the media. Like, I don't even know if there's been a probe as to how long did it take for jury selection? Do you know?
A week.
Jesus.
What?
Yeah, I think it was only a week.
Yeah, there's no way. There's no way that they don't have a problem. He's not gonna have a problem here. It's gonna be near impossible for him to have a fair trial. You know,
Yeah. Again, what does the Constitution say about a fair trial?
nothing.
It doesn't.
Right, but it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard, and I don't know how many more witnesses they're calling. Do we know how many witnesses they're gonna call?
They said this case is going to take another month.
Oh my God.
So the government's not going to rest for at least 3 more weeks.
Well, they're probably gonna call every person at the party that ever heard of the freak off or stayed after the fact, right?
Well, Kevin Hart was there, and I saw this yesterday.
Did he testify?
Kevin Hart made a comment yesterday about whether or not he's coming in, so I don't think he's coming in. So the question is who are these witnesses that are going to come in and say that they were at a freak-off? And even if they say that they were at a freak-off, what are they going to say? Yes, I was at a freak-off, and Cassie was there, and everybody was having sex? I mean,
What's that prove?
what does that
Right.
prove?
Right,
You can bring on all these individuals and say that,
right.
you know?
It's gonna be interesting, but we'll keep up on it, and we'll keep coming back and talking about it. But moving on to the other case that's going on, the Idaho murders. You know the case that's going on there.
Brian Kohberger.
Right, it's his name. I didn't want to say his name, but like there it is, But everybody knows his name. But it's the 4 college roommates. Was it 4 of them that got murdered?
Yeah, there were 6 in the house.
6 in the
4
house.
got
4
murdered.
got murdered. I think everybody knows about it. 4 got murdered in the middle of the night, like 3 in the morning. One of the really just brutal crime scene, terrible crime, heartbreaking to see. One of the roommates wakes up in the middle of the night, hears ruckus, texts another roommate. They're separated. They come together. But when she comes out, she sees a guy in all black. Right? What was it?
It was tall with a
Bushy
athletic
eyebrows.
mask with bushy eyebrows.
Right. And then on the scene, and he just walks by her, interestingly enough,
Yeah.
right? He walks by her, doesn't attack them. And leaves the scene. He came in, they think, through a sliding glass door. Is what
Yeah,
they're
the
saying?
sliding glass door, I think, on the second floor.
Right. Now, how they tie it to this Brian Kohberger guy is they find a sheath, a knife sheath, right? Is that what it is? They find a knife sheath on the bed of one of the couple that got murdered, and they pulled his DNA off of it. They then start watching some of the cameras, or they watch street cams, and they see this individual's car go by at the same time of the scene, crime scene. How many times? A lot.
It was like
forth.
12 times in one night.
Back, does a 3-point turn, does all this, takes off, goes and has his father meet him and drives across the country, gets pulled over twice, by the way.
Yeah, in like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
apart,
5 minutes.
Lives
for
across the
tailgating.
country too. He lives really far away.
Right, but he was
Pennsylvania.
he was like a professor, adjunct professor or something in a school
Grad
that was
assistant.
like 20 minutes, or grad assistant.
At
excuse me,
Washington State.
20 minutes away from the crime scene, right? And he's now in trial. So what do you think, guys? Weakness, strengths, and what kind of juries are you looking for here?
Weaknesses. All right. The entire case is circumstantial. However, Florida doesn't have a jury instruction on circumstantial evidence anymore. But when I practiced in North Carolina, it did. And it said that circumstantial evidence is to be treated the exact same as any other type of evidence.
Right.
It is evidence. Sometimes circumstantial evidence can be more powerful than direct evidence.
Right.
So that's the issue they have. Weakness. When you talked about the fingerprint the other time on the door, it's the same thing with DNA on the knife sheath. All the DNA, it was a K-bar knife with a button on the sheath that you have to pop it out.
Right.
And there was a DNA, I believe it was on the inside of the button.
Right.
All right. All that means is that he had touched that knife or that sheath at some point in time. It doesn't mean that he was the one there with it, but all it means is that he had touched it. Where it starts, the circumstantial evidence starts to
Right.
stack up.
Just gonna say that.
And what they saw a white Hyundai Elantra on the night of the offense drive by about 12 times.
At the same time that the crime happened. That's what it is.
Correct. Now,
It's like 4 a.m.
correct. And they noticed that there was no license plate on the front of it. They didn't get the back license plate, but there was no license plate on the front. Idaho, I think it's Idaho and Washington both require a front license plate.
Right.
Pennsylvania does not.
Where he's from.
Correct. So they knew they were looking for a white Hyundai Elantra with only a rear license plate. All right. Then when he got stopped or got a parking citation over in Washington, that's how they were able to loop him in. And then they did a subpoena to Google or one of the cell phone providers to determine his whereabouts on the night of the murder. So it saw him hopping around, and then at 2-something in the morning, all of a sudden, no contact with the phone. So he either turned the phone off or put it in airplane mode. And so there was I think it was Uber Eats or DoorDash delivery to one of the girls at 4 a.m.
Right.
And after that, they said that the murders took place between 4:04 and 4:20 p.m. He did have ample time to get there. Again, they can't prove that he was in the area because of the fact that that his phone was off or not
Well, other
transmitting
than the
signal.
vehicle, his vehicle.
Correct.
Right.
But there are other white Hyundai Elantras. But again,
Add that with the DNA on the sheet.
The DNA
in
on
the
the
bed of the murder victims.
the
Right?
white Hyundai Elantra, the missing front tag, there's a reason why all the circumstantial evidence, I mean, one thing, if it's just one of these things, we can talk that way.
Right.
But when all of the circumstantial evidence starts pointing towards the same result every time, that can be a pretty powerful argument. There was no evidence in the crime scene other than the DNA and the fact that he has bushy eyebrows.
Right. How do you attack this, Johnny? If you're a defense attorney.
I would go to the lack of evidence in this particular case. The DNA is the only thing they really have. That scene
True.
that they have at that particular murder scene is horrendous.
Right. It's bad.
There's blood everywhere.
It was leaking out of the
Leaking
house.
out of
Right,
the house.
right. So they have no footprint,
Oh, they do have a footprint.
but it doesn't match.
Does it match him?
It doesn't match him.
It does? I thought they matched it to a type of sneakery war, but
They don't have.
Again, it was a party house though, so people were coming through that place all the time.
They have nothing in the Elantra. No blood in the Elantra.
Right.
So how does he get away? Even if he stepped in that footprint, and let's just say it was his footprint with his shoe,
Right.
right? That would then have blood in the Elantra. With a crime scene using a knife, and you cut somebody's throat,
The way he cut, like multiple people's.
blood is going to be all over that individual, unless that individual was wearing, we talk about that old Dexter show.
Right.
There was nothing to say that the person was dressed up in all.
He's in all black, they're saying.
He's
He's
in
not
all
wearing
black.
all this gear. like
So
you're thinking.
none of his bloody clothes were found. No blood inside the Elantra at all. No blood anywhere else. No blood tracking in and out of the house,
Right.
which is, I think,
That's a big thing.
that's a big thing, which is strange because there were two other individuals that were still at that place, and there was a guy that showed up in Uber Eats
4 minutes before the
minutes
murder.
before
started.
4 minutes before the murder crime started.
Right.
Yes, his DNA on the knife sleeve is bad, but depending on when that knife sleeve was sold and where it was sold from, which I don't think they can put together, I mean, he did live in the area. He might have touched it at the store.
Add on that the remaining roommates don't call the cops until the morning, hours later.
Yeah, they just hid in their rooms.
Which, okay, you could say they're shocked, they're scared, but their initial call was our roommates passed out drunk and didn't wake up. Not they're horrendously murdered, not they're stabbed,
Right, so
not that we saw a guy in
with,
all
with
black
blood leaking out of the
out
house.
of the house, right? I mean, it's just bizarre.
Bizarre.
There's enough to talk about, right?
Right.
The DNA is always a problem, though. I mean, because people just, it's a problem because
That's all they focus on.
that's what they're going to focus on, right? It's like
like, why- how could
DUIs
you
and
ever
their
touch this?
breathalyzer, and you got to go deal with that, right? Like, but there's a lot to talk,
You would have at least something else inside the house.
right?
Something else in DNA
Bloody
aspect.
footprint.
Something that show something in the car. You don't commit that type of murder and leave in a vehicle. I mean, listen, I've had cases where a murder's committed and the person's then gets in the car to leave, and they go try to clean it at wherever they try to clean it at,
Right.
right? And they can never clean it all.
No.
It's impossible.
Right.
I mean, blood is everywhere. I mean, it sprays. It's like, so when you would spray on your clothes, you would then track it in somewhere. They don't have any of that, which is,
You would expect to see, with the amount of blood that was left in there, you would expect to see some sort of a bloody footprint or some sort of blood trail leading out of the house.
Something.
And they don't have that.
right.
Which is also bizarre. There's just a lot
I
of
think the
bizarre-
footprint, and I might be wrong, and I don't want to say something that's right or wrong. I think a footprint might have come from one of the individuals in the house that was walking in order to get either out of the house or to go call the
Well,
cops.
there's so many people, like the
Well, so much
police.
time passed since the crime.
I think it was 7, 8 hours.
Yeah, I mean, so many things.
Because it was a
contaminated
college
the
town.
crime
I
scene.
think they slept in till 12 o'clock the next
Yeah,
day.
like they literally slept till 12 o'clock.
One of the problems that they have with the footprint is the fact that earlier, I think it was earlier that evening, the police received a noise complaint for that house, and they went to the house. There were a bunch of kids in there partying, and they were like, hey, we need to speak to the person who owns or rents the house. The girls weren't even there.
Right, I remember.
It was just
remember
an
that.
open air party house. They just,
Everyone walked through. They didn't even have to be home, the roommates. It was literally the party house, akin to a frat or sorority house.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, the other problem that I have with the evidence in this case is 16 minutes from entry. Allegedly, this is the way they said it. He went in, up the stairs, into the room upstairs, because he wanted to kill one of the girl who was upstairs. There's two girls in that room. He kills both of them. Then he leaves, goes downstairs, runs into somebody in the hallway, because this girl has defensive wounds all over. And defensive wounds are like if somebody's
Right.
stabbing you and you put up your hands,
Right, right.
you're gonna get cut. So she has defensive wounds, and she ran back into her room and he killed her in there. Her boyfriend was in that room, and he was allegedly passed out in the bed, and then he got killed with just one knife shot. But then he carved something into the guy's lower leg. Don't know what he carved. So killing somebody, unless you're using a gun, all right, killing somebody is not always the easiest process.
Right.
All right, the human body is pretty resilient. So 16 minutes to kill 4 people with
Carve
a knife.
something in someone's leg.
Yeah, carve something in someone's leg, make sure that you left no evidence behind, and then leave the house.
I don't know, professional hitman could pull that off.
I
But obviously
don't-
it wasn't a hitman job, it was a mess, but
I think it was more than one person.
more than one person.
Yeah.
And you think this Kohberger guy did it? You think he was there with another person and is taking the fall here?
You know, I would say this. All the circumstantial evidence points to him having a role in it.
So the argument is it's all circumstantial, right? That's what's your argument to the jury, based on what you hear?
I just don't, I think it's all circumstantial, and it's based on only one fingerprint, and maybe his car outside.
Not even a fingerprint.
Excuse me, DNA. On DNA on a sleeve. I just think that, like, it's not enough. But today's world with DNA,
You know, one of the problems with this guy is apparently he's autistic, and he, like, shows no emotion or reaction to
doesn't help.
anything.
That definitely doesn't.
So during the jury trial, they're gonna put up these, you know, just horrifically grotesque pictures, and he's just gonna sit there like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, they've already been showing that. He looks like he looks like a killer.
yeah.
You know, whatever that means. You and I and all of us know that means nothing, right? Nothing, absolutely nothing. But to the layman or to a jury,
I had a murder case once, and my client had all gold teeth. And the whole entire trial, I kept leaning over to him saying, stop smiling, stop making any, he couldn't, like, because I just did not, appearances are everything.
oh yeah,
Because that jury is eyes on you the entire time.
oh yeah, any infection.
So-
In your head. So go
The
ahead.
worst
Yeah.
thing people can do is bring a Bible into the courtroom with them. Do not, I mean, nothing looks more guilty than a defendant with a death clutch on a Bible.
Oh my God, I had one guy speaking of this, we'll end with this, but like, we were going for sentencing on a youthful offender. Youthful offender for layman, we brought it up in the last episode, is if you're under a certain age, you can plead to the judge, and the judge can depart from minimums, and you know, it's one of the factors that allows you to. So it was a youthful offender, we come in, and the day before he walks in, he got a full face tattoo. Like, literally, this is 15 years ago, where, like, Mike Tyson was the only person that had done this at this point. And the guy was already a scary-looking dude, man. He was this big, scary, and he had the face tattoo, and he had the gold teeth. And I look at him, I go, God damn, man. And he goes, you like it? I'm like, no, man, I don't like it. I don't like it at all, you know? People don't understand, like, it's a lot. It's a lot. And this guy looks like, he looks scary. Like, he looks like a scary.
He looks kind of creepy.
Yeah, he's creepy, not scary.
Yeah.
He looks creepy, you know, but we'll keep up with it. I'm glad to be able to evaluate it with you guys and analyze it. I'm going to have these guys back. We'll be keeping up with these cases and be able to update you on any new cases that came up. Thank you, Johnny and Mike, for coming on again. Again, Michael Dye, you can find him on Instagram. Johnny's all in a week's work. Check him out. You can find him all over. Search him up. Very well-known lawyers, both of them. So, and thank you all. Thank you all the listeners for joining us. We love you all. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm being told I have to ask you that every time. We're on YouTube, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're everywhere. Also, I'm being told now that we have a link to merchandise at the bottom. If you want to buy your Two Taps and Friends swag, it's available to you. Thank you all for listening. Can't wait to talk to you guys again soon. Love you all. Goodbye. Cut.